Hello students, welcome to the lecture on marketing channels, and after the lecture we will be able to learn the following objectives. Understand the meaning of marketing channels, explain the types of marketing channels, discuss the importance of marketing channels, define the distribution strategies. Let us begin with an introduction to marketing channels. Marketing channel is an organized network of agencies and institutions which, in combination, perform all the activities required to link producers with users to accomplish the marketing task. This channel must be designed such that it delivers a level of value to the customer that creates a sustainable, competitive advantage for the supply chain. This value can take many forms depending upon the requirements of the customer. The relationship between the value of the product and the shopping experience is particularly important, and the skill of the value chain is in the positioning of the total offer in a profitable way. Now let's find out what are marketing channels. Marketing channels are sets of interdependent organizations involved in the process of making product and service available for use and consumption. Independent organizations are called marketing intermediaries. The main purpose of trade is to supply goods to the consumers living in far-off places. As goods and services move from producer to consumer, they may have to pass through various individuals. Let us take an example. A farmer in US has an apple orchard. Once the apples are ripened, he sells the apples to an agent of Washington. The agent collects the apples from US, packs them and sells them to a wholesaler at Washington Vegetable Market. The wholesaler then distributes them to the various retail fruit vendors throughout Washington by selling smaller quantities. Finally, one purchases apples from those vendors as per requirements. Thus, we find that while coming from the producer at US, the product reaches the consumers by passing through several hands like an agent, a wholesaler and a retailer. All these three are called middlemen. These middlemen are connecting links between producers of goods on one side and consumers on the other side. They perform several functions such as buying, selling, storage and so on. These middlemen constitute the channels of distribution of goods. Channel functions and flows. Marketing channels perform work of moving goods from producers to the consumers. For this, they perform some key functions. These are the functions in marketing channels: carrying of inventory, demand generation, physical distribution, after-sales service, extending credit to customers, flows in marketing channels, physical possession, ownership, promotion, negotiation, financing, risking, ordering, payment.
Marketing channels are how the goods and services and value move between producers and consumers. They are made up of organizations like manufacturers, wholesalers, agents, brokers, and retailers, all working together to bring goods and services to the customer. Each of these units forms a link in the value chain, described as the chain of activities and institutions that add value to a product on its way from production to the end consumer. Within the channels, each member is a marketing firm with its own customers to serve. Each firm is also a customer in that it purchases goods and services from another member in the channel. So when thinking about sustainability and competitive advantage, we must consider innovation from a whole system perspective. In earlier units, we discussed how failing to consider the big picture in economic or environmental terms can lead to unintended consequences and undesirable trade-offs. Likewise, decisions made anywhere along the marketing channels have consequences for the overall sustainability and profitability of a product. Traditionally, we have thought of marketing channels or value chains in a linear fashion, with goods and services flowing from manufacturers to consumers and money flowing from consumers back to the manufacturers. Marketing channels were typically viewed as a throughput system, a system in which materials go in and materials go out with no accounting for their origination or final destination. As we've seen in sustainable marketing, there are no throughput systems. The materials originate from somewhere, the earth, and end up back somewhere, back in the earth, whether in landfills or into the atmosphere. The traditional linear thinking of the marketing channel is unsustainable. Waste is a major cause of costs and problems in marketing channels. It is generated in some form at virtually every link in the value chain. Historically, waste has been disposed of in the simplest and cheapest ways possible. The most obvious issue is that waste pollutes. Linear throughput systems increase concentrations of toxic substances in the environment, which destroy or reduce the effectiveness of natural systems and create problems for human health and well-being. Waste is expensive. It costs money to create waste, and it costs money to dispose of waste. The goal is to properly manage waste so that it can be eliminated or converted into a source of revenue. In the natural world, every waste product is a vital input to other organisms and life processes. Plants create food and oxygen to sustain animal life, Animal waste creates fertilizer-built soil that allows plants to thrive. Biomimicry, where industrial processes are modeled after biological processes, bred the cradle-to-cradle philosophy, whereby all industrial waste can and should be eliminated by making sure that all of it either serves as biodegradable nutrients for natural systems or is reclaimed for reuse in human technological systems. Cradle-to-cradle certification helps companies design products that can be reabsorbed by nature or reintroduced to the technosphere through recycling. Manufacturers who receive this certification produce with renewable energy, use water efficiently, and treat people responsibly. Cradle-to-cradle thinking results in marketing channels that require firms to think more responsibly about the waste they produce and to reduce it dramatically. As early as the 1970s, marketers have recognized the need for reverse logistics, which is the systematic movement of waste backward through the marketing channels in order to convert it back into reusable raw materials. This is no easy feat and has presented a challenge for manufacturers for decades. One way for reverse logistics to work is for retailers to take recyclable materials back, like packaging, plastic bags, and used products. Consider electronics retailers who now provide programs for returning used electronics to be disposed of in a responsible manner. To become sustainable, these backward flows of materials must become normal, forward flows, transforming the value chain into the value circle, where end-of-life materials go back into the production chain at the manufacturing stage and are reused. Prior to recycling, many products can continue to provide value. Secondary markets are markets that provide used or surplus goods at prices that are well below the initial retail prices. Thrift stores are an example of one type of secondary market that sell used clothing. When the clothing ends its useful life cycle, the majority of it is valued as recycled material. But even before it reaches that stage, the thrift store industry can provide much sought-after used goods to a growing market. Closing the loop on a value circle has many advantages. It helps keep harmful waste out of the environment, converts waste and disposal costs into sources of revenue, provides industry with stable supplies of raw materials without depleting natural capital, and builds human capital by providing living wage jobs for more people. We are seeing an increase in cooperation across industries. Often, the waste generated from one industry can be used as resources for another. Marketing channels exist and thrive because they add value for customers. Channel members attempt to maximize their own profits, and those with the most channel power have advantages in doing so. Channel power is the influence of one member of the marketing channel over the actions or circumstances of other members. Through cooperation, collaboration, and communication, channel members can innovate, create synergies, and build value that benefits everyone. Value circles work best when channel member relationships are open and collaborative. Collaboration, at its best, will strive to include the perspectives of both the upstream channel members, a company's supply chain, and the downstream channel members, a company's customers and their customers, on down to the final consumers of the company's product. Transparency is key. The organization's operations and practices must be open and visible to outside observers. As we discussed in previous units, it is an important element in sustainable marketing. It makes it possible for all stakeholders, including other channel members, investors, and customers, to evaluate the sustainability of a product as it moves through the marketing channels. An important function of marketing channel transparency is the ability to establish the chain of custody. This is the movement and possession of materials from their current places back to their origins. Consumers and retailers often have to rely on third-party certification to verify that products meet certain standards. These third-party certifiers pay careful attention to the chain of custody in the marketing channel. Building sustainable channel capacity is an ongoing challenge for many industries. A common barrier to sustainable marketing is the lack of production capacity among sustainable producers. Major players in the market can use their financial advantages to help increase sustainable channel capacity at a base level. where the demand for a sustainable product outstrips production, help is often needed at a higher level to help the resource producers make the necessary changes to become sustainable producers. Sustainable distribution emphasizes efficiency and carbon neutrality in the distribution of products. The marketing channel functions of transportation and logistics get the products where they need to be in a timely fashion. These functions also contribute largely to a product's ecological footprint. Sustainable distribution places a great focus on local production and incorporates material backflows, allowing manufacturers to replace virgin materials with recyclables more easy. Green facilities and warehousing can offset the damaging aspects of building and parking lots by more sustainable building practices like those advocated and monitored by LEED certification programs. Green transportation is another area where huge opportunities for increased sustainability can be found. As it turns out, the mode of transportation is much more relevant to sustainability than the distance traveled. Air transportation creates the largest number of greenhouse gas emissions, and truck transportation is also a huge source of greenhouse gas emissions. So, this being one of the most common modes of transportation, and as such cannot be eliminated, steps must be taken to create more responsible packaging to reduce weight and increase the amount of product being transported in each trip. Another step to offset the damages being caused is to shorten the channels and simplify them. This is called disintermediation, which means reducing the number of roles of intermediaries in a marketing channel. Channel members exist because they add value to the system. As circumstances change, the value of certain intermediaries becomes redundant and may even decrease to the point that they add more cost or waste than their service can justify. The marketing channel needs to be evaluated and re-evaluated regularly to ensure that value is being added at every step of the process. Where intermediaries can be reduced, thus shortening the channels, actions should be taken. Retailing has a key role in the marketing channel. It is the primary interface between consumers and the rest of the value circle. Retailers can facilitate the move to a more sustainable society through influencing suppliers, educating consumers, merchandising, and taking back recyclables. Supply chains and value circles function at their most optimal when each member of the chain takes a whole system perspective. Sustainability is influenced and achieved at every step in the process, and each member has a responsibility to make its area as sustainable as possible.
Let's now discuss the types of marketing channels. Normally, goods and services pass through several hands before they come to the hands of the consumer for use. But in some cases, producers sell goods and services directly to the consumers without involving any middlemen in between them, which can be called as direct channel. So there are two types of channels, one direct channel and the other indirect channel. It can be found that there is just one direct channel, that is from producer to the consumer. There are many indirect channels like producer to the agent, to the wholesaler, to the retailer, to the consumer. Producer again to the wholesaler, retailer, consumer. Producer again to the agent, consumer. Producer to the wholesaler, consumer, and producer to the retailer and consumer. Direct channel. In this channel, producers sell their goods and services directly to the consumers. There is no middleman present between the producers and the consumers. The producers may sell directly to consumers through door-to-door salesmen and through their own retail stores. For example, Adidas, HPCL, Liberty Shoes Limited has their own retail shops to sell their products to consumers. For certain service organizations, consumers avail the service directly. Banks, consultancy firms, telephone companies, passenger and freight transport services, and so on are examples of direct channels of distribution of service. Indirect channel. The producer is producing goods on a large scale. It may not be possible for him to sell goods directly to consumers. As such, he sells goods through middlemen. These middlemen may be wholesalers or retailers. A wholesaler is a person who buys goods in large quantities from producers, whereas a retailer is one who buys goods from wholesalers and producers and sells it to the ultimate customers as per their requirement. The involvement of various middlemen in the process of distribution constitutes the indirect channel of distribution. This is the common channel for the distribution of goods to ultimate consumers. Selling goods through wholesalers may be suitable in case of food grains, spices, utensils, and so on, and mostly of items which are smaller in size. Under this channel, the producers sell to one or more retailers who in turn sell to the ultimate consumers. This channel is used under the following conditions: when the goods cater to a local market, for example breads, biscuits, patties, and so on. When the retailers are big and buy in bulk but sell in smaller units directly to the consumers. Departmental stores and super bazaars are examples of this channel. we shall now discuss the importance of marketing channels. There are hundreds and thousands of marketing intermediaries whose job is to help move goods from the raw material state to producers and then on to the consumers. Marketing intermediaries are organizations that assist in moving goods and services from producer to industrial and consumer users. They are organizations formerly called middlemen in the middle of a series of organizations that join together to help distribute goods. A channel of distribution is the whole series of marketing intermediaries who join together to transport and store goods in their path from producers to consumers. A wholesaler is a marketing intermediary that sells to other organizations. A retailer is an organization that sells to the ultimate consumers. Channels of distribution enhance communication flows and the flow of money and title to goods. The latest trend is to try to eliminate wholesalers and the need for retail stores by selling over the internet. Why marketing need intermediaries? Manufacturers do not always need marketing intermediaries to sell their goods to consumer and industrial markets. Intermediaries perform certain functions better than most manufacturers. These functions include transportation, storage, selling, advertising, and relationship building. Companies often outsource distribution to others. Brokers are marketing intermediaries who bring buyers and sellers together and assist in negotiating an exchange, but do not take title to the goods. How intermediaries created exchange efficiency? Intermediaries create exchange efficiency by decreasing the number of contacts needed to establish marketing exchanges. Not only are intermediaries more efficient, but they are more effective than manufacturers. Intermediaries were often better at performing their functions than a manufacturer or consumer could be. Recently, technology has made it possible for manufacturers to reach consumers much more efficiently. Some manufacturers reach consumers directly on the internet. Retailers are now so closely linked with manufacturers that they can get delivery several times a day. Must change their function to remain viable. Value versus cost of intermediaries. Some people think that if we get rid of the intermediaries, we could greatly reduce the cost of the things we buy. The text uses the example of fiber fill to illustrate how marketing intermediaries facilitate the movement of goods. Values discussed include the value of not driving to Michigan to buy a box of cereal, the value of saving time, and effort by not having to drive to a wholesaler's on the outskirts of town. The text emphasizes three basic facts about intermediaries. Intermediaries can be eliminated, but the activities cannot be eliminated. Someone else still has to perform the task. Today, many activities are being performed on the World Wide Web, and intermediaries are being eliminated. Intermediaries have survived in the past because they perform functions more effectively and efficiently than most manufacturers. Intermediaries add cost to products, but these costs are offset by values they create. Moving on, we shall now talk about the distribution strategies. For product-focused companies, establishing the most appropriate distribution strategies is a major key to success, defined as maximizing sales and profits. Unfortunately, many of these companies often fail to establish or maintain the most effective distribution strategies. Problems that we have identified include unwillingness to establish different distribution channels for different products, fear of utilizing multiple channels, especially including direct or semi-direct sales due to concerns about erosion of distributor loyalty or inter-channel cannibalization, failure to periodically revisit and update distribution strategies, lack of creativity and resistance to change. To be fair, there can be no sound reasons for these perceived weaknesses. More typically, however, they are due to failings such as simple inertia, lack of understanding of the ultimate customers and their preferences, or a failure to acknowledge the importance of a distribution strategy and invest sufficient resources in understanding it. Now is absolutely not the time to blindly continue the status quo with the distribution strategies. The internet is creating sea changes in terms of traditional manufacturer-distributor relationships. It has seen significant waves of disintermediation in multiple product lines and can facilitate cost-effective broadening of distribution channels. Meanwhile, improvements in supply chain management technology must also be factored into choice of distribution partners, mapping the products to the end user, determining customers' channel preferences, and comparing these preferences with actual availability, recommending new channels and why, examining competitors' strategies and comparing them and their effectiveness with our own. Confidential interviews with the distribution partners to identify areas for improvement as well as an existing strengths to be encouraged. Channel management strategies. A sales channel is about where someone is going to sell and how he is going to sell. In fact, it is about where the consumer is willing to purchase product, where the consumer expects the product to be available, and what is the consumer's decision in making the process regarding the category and product, and what is the positioning in the market. All the channel decisions should go hand in hand with segmentation, positioning, pricing, and other elements of the mix. Under channel management, the company deals with external organizations, channel members or partners to achieve its desired marketing goals and profitability. There are different types of channel partners like C&F agents, distributors, retailers, value-added resellers, brokers, and so on. Each of the channel's members' business goals will differ in the expectations of profitability, sales, ROI, long-term prospects, and so on. The right channel strategy will help bring coherence and build value to the customer, channel members, and the company. So a strong channel network has become a key component in corporate strategy. As discussed, there are many factors that influence channel management. The broad factors that influence a channel decision or strategy are understanding of the target group, target segments, the consumer needs, and the consumer behavior. Understanding of the marketing mix and the product features, brand persona, positioning, pricing, and so on. An understanding of the retailer's needs and behaviors, the channel goals and the functions to be performed by the channel, the legal issues to reach required. Logistics and supply chain management. Supply chain management is a cross-functional approach to manage the movement of raw materials into an organization, certain aspects of the internal processing of materials into finished goods, and then the movement of finished goods out of the organization towards the end consumer. Role of logistics. Every organization has to move materials. Manufacturers have factories that collect raw materials from suppliers and deliver finished goods to the customers. Retail shops have deliveries from wholesalers. A television news service collects reports from around the world and delivers them to the viewers. Most of us live in towns and cities and eat food brought in from the country. When someone orders books from a website, a courier delivers them to the door, and when one buys a mobile phone, it has probably traveled around the world to reach someone. Every time one buys, rents, leases, hires or borrows anything at all, someone has to collect it and deliver it to the door. Logistics is the function responsible for this movement. Despite this effort, we hardly notice logistics as it goes about its business, but sometimes we might notice the lorries driving down a motorway, visit a shopping mall, drive through a trading estate, see a container ship unloading, fly from an airport, or have a parcel delivered by a courier service. These are the visible signs of a huge industry that employs millions of people and costs billions of dollars a year. Did you know? The birth of logistics traced back to ancient war times of Greek and Roman empires, when military officers titled as logistics were assigned the duties of providing services related to supply and the distribution of resources. Logistics support operations. Every organization delivers products to its customers. Traditionally, these products are described as either goods or services. Then manufacturers like Sony, Ford and Guinness make tangible goods, while the BBC, Qantas and Vodafone provide intangible services. But the view is misleading, and it is more realistic to describe every product as a complex package that contains a mixture of both goods and service. At one end of this spectrum are products that are predominantly goods such as cars, domestic appliances, clothes and furniture. At the other end are products that are predominantly services such as insurance, banking, education and telephone services. In the middle are products with a more even balance such as restaurant meals, hospitals and some websites. Materials. We have outlined the role of logistics in moving materials, but what exactly do we mean by materials? Sometimes this is obvious. For example, when the power station brings coal from a mine, a farmer takes potatoes to a market, or a computer manufacturer delivers PCs to a warehouse. With tangible goods, it is easy to see the role of logistics, and even organizations providing the most intangible services move some goods around, perhaps paperwork or consumables. Supply chain management. So far, we have described the movement of materials through a single organization, but no organization works in isolation, and each one acts as a customer when it buys materials from its own suppliers, and then it acts as a supplier when it delivers materials to its own customers. Did you know? The term supply chain management entered the public domain with Keith Oliver, a consultant at Booz Allen Hamilton, used it as an interview for the Financial Times in 1982. Wholesalers and retailers. Wholesalers and retailers are important middlemen who generally facilitate flow of goods from the producers to the consumers. Wholesalers are one of the most important middlemen in the channel of distribution who deals with the goods in bulk quantity. They buy goods in bulk from the producers and sell them in relatively smaller quantities to the retailers. In some cases, they also sell goods directly to the consumers if the quantity to be purchased is more. They usually deal with a limited variety of items and also in a specific line of product like iron and steel, textiles, paper, electrical appliances and so on. Let us know about the characteristics of wholesalers. The characteristics of wholesalers are: wholesalers buy goods directly from producers or manufacturers. Wholesalers buy goods in large quantities and sells in relatively smaller quantities. They sell different varieties of a particular line of product. Managing retailing. It includes all the activities involved in selling goods or services directly to final customers for their personal non-business use. A retailer is any business's enterprise whose sale volume comes primarily from retailing. Types of retailing. There are 8 categories. Specialty stores carry a narrow product line with a deep assortment within the line. For example, Athlete's Foot, Tall Men and the limited department stores carry several product lines. For example, Sears, J.C. Penney, Bloomingdale's supermarkets, relatively large, low-cost, low-margin, high-volume, self-service operations designed to serve the consumer's total needs for food, laundry and household maintenance products. For example, Kroger, Safeway, Food Lion. Now, in the end, let us summarize what we have learned in this lecture. A channel of distribution is the route or path along which goods move from producers to ultimate consumers. A wholesaler is a marketing intermediary that sells to other organizations. A retailer is an organization that sells to ultimate consumers. Marketing intermediaries are organizations that assist in moving goods and services from producer to industrial and consumer users. Brokers are marketing intermediaries who bring buyers and sellers together and assist in negotiating an exchange, but do not take title to the goods.